I'm stoked.
Oh, yeah, me too, man.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm stoked on some stuff.
Is that something you do?
I do something weird at the beginning of every Stoked on.
It is now.
One time I impersonated the prospector from Big Thunder Mountain.
Yeah, and then I closed off with it.
You did, yeah. So we do weird things on Stoked on
Yeah, we
this
do.
because this is a short episode where we talk about things we're excited for this week in pop culture and our lives in general.
What?
Yeah, and people listen to it. So
They do.
I'm going to start off real quick with a story from last weekend that I didn't get to share because I forgot.
Yeah.
I was super excited about is that there's a band called MyChildren MyBride.
Oh, who
And-
gets credit for this?
And Madison
one?
gets credit for this. So they're a metal band that I've been listening to since high school. I love their stuff.
Okay.
Great. So I go with Madison last week. She has a bridal show close by to where we live, and I'm helping her set up for it. I'm carrying some stuff over.
Right.
The manly man I am. I'm pulling my weight for my wife.
Right.
I get over there, and there's a photographer who works with her company who's there as well.
Okay.
And he's helping out, and Madison leaves, and I'm kind of like, all right, I'm going to strike up a conversation with this guy because we're just kind of standing around waiting to see what to do next. And so we get on the conversation of music, and we're talking about bands we like, and I'm telling him, like, oh, yeah, I was, like, in a band for a while and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was in a Christian metal band for a while, too. So I'm like, that's cool, like, thinking it was a local band or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, well, what was it called? Maybe I know who they are. He's like, oh, I was a guitarist for MyChildren MyBride. And I'm like, what? My brain exploded a little bit. I was like, I love that band. And what's funny is the only 3 albums I have by this band is the only 3 albums that he was on.
Oh, that's
Like he was on
amazing.
from 2008 or 2007 to 2013.
2007 to 2013.
2007 to 2013.
Wow.
And those are the only albums I have are between that span of time. So I was like that. So I started fanboying a little bit, and I was picking his brain. And just spoiler alert, he's gonna be on the podcast soon.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna like ask him some questions about what it's like to tour and everything. And so if music's your thing, it's gonna be a Wreck My Childhood for Music Edition.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, we'll see whether or not he can get some of the songs that were popular back in like early 2000s. You know, the things we were into. We were talking in the last podcast
Yeah,
about
talking
pop
about
punk
punk.
music and stuff that we
Yeah.
like.
I listened to my Emo Forever playlist on the way over here.
Yeah,
today.
that's
There
good.
you go.
Some My Chem, some Taking Back Sunday, get
Hawthorne
some
Heights.
old Senses Fail in there. What else
you-
was on that? Blink 182, the Adam song was probably popped on there.
Yeah. Ohio is for Lovers by
Oh.
Hawthorne Heights came on.
Hawthorne Heights, man, that song. So what's cool is there's another podcast. They've been on our show before, Music Crush Monday.
Okay.
Super cool guys. Their whole premise is that they play music for each other, and you go in with blind ears. They don't tell you who the band is. They just
Blind
yeah,
ears?
blind ears. Yeah. That's what I call it. I think they have a better term for it.
Deaf?
Well, no. I mean, like, you go in not knowing who the band is going to be.
Oh, okay.
So you're listening to it for the music rather than for whatever preconception you have of a band. Correct. So they just had on recently Shane Told, frontman for Silverstein, was on their podcast.
That's cool.
So how this relates back is I got into Hawthorne Heights because they used to make compilation albums for record labels, all you kids who don't know what this is.
There's a thing called a record label.
Yeah, a record label that signed bands, and then they would send out compilation albums for
Yeah.
their bands. They'd have one song. I had one that had Silverstein, Smashed into Pieces, Ohio is for Lovers by Hawthorne Heights. My favorite band in the world, Bayside, had a song called Masterpiece. And then there were like 2 or 3 other bands on there. I can't remember who they were, but Silverstein, Hawthorne Heights, Bayside. Those were my first introductions to these bands that now are like staples.
Cute Without the E by Taking Back
Yeah,
Sunday.
that's a great song, great album. It's funny
so
because
good.
Adam Lazzaro, I think is the front man's name. He hates that album because he hates how his voice sounds in it.
Really?
Because his voice was very. He didn't really hone in the singing capabilities he has now back then. I like it because it's like very raw.
It's
and
very
organic.
raw, yeah.
And I can kind of mimic it because it's not that great at singing, and I'm not a great singer. So I like it, but he's not a huge fan.
Only wishful thinking.
Yeah, he like it was just a lot of whininess going on.
So
but yeah,
good.
yeah, I love the emo stuff. So
That's my favorite.
I don't even know how we got on that tangent.
Well,
We
you're
talked
talking
about.
about you're stoked on this because Joe's going to be on the
Yeah,
podcast.
so Joseph,
Ooh, first name
guitarist.
basis now.
For what?
Well, I work with him, so I didn't know he was anything crazy.
Apparently, the band is from Alabama, but they all live out here now.
Mm-hmm.
So he still sees them like on a weekly
I'd
basis.
live out here too if I was born in Alabama.
I guess that's true. Yeah. Not that we can really say much. We're moving to Texas.
Roll, roll Tide.
So yeah, that's one thing I'm stoked on. Second thing, Aubrey Plaza has been announced to be in the reboot of Child's Play, which I am extremely excited about because I love Aubrey Plaza.
She's one of my favorites.
We just started watching Parks and Rec. She's great in that. I am a huge fan of Legion. Have you checked Legion out, Cam?
No.
Oh man, so good. X-Men. It's you know what it is, right? It's like the FX series about X-Men, but it's like a whole different universe of it. She plays a really good character in that. Aubrey Plaza is just unique.
She's a great actor.
And she's great. So how do you feel about that now watching Parks and Rec, Madison? Aubrey Plaza being in a Child's Play reboot.
Well, I think, like we were saying, it'll be interesting to see their take on it because when you said that, I was assuming it was a continuation of it. But when you said it was a reboot, then I was like, oh, that's interesting. It can go a bunch of different ways.
I think they said they're not sticking to the original idea of it like being the killer's spirit getting stuck after the lightning strikes from some curse or whatever. I forget. Someone cursed him. He like died in a fire, and then the like toy owner for some reason.
The criminal who's running away, then the police are like getting in on him, and then he transfers his soul. Yeah.
He transfers his soul. That's right. So yeah, and then the last thing I want to talk about here, Dark Phoenix trailer. You guys see that or no?
Jess talked about it, and I didn't watch it.
Yeah, so there's a Dark Phoenix trailer. About a week or two ago, Captain Marvel had a trailer come out.
Right, and I saw that.
Yeah, so here's the thing. These two superhero trailers just came out. Captain Marvel, whatever, it looks like standard superhero movie. It's a Marvel film.
Samuel L. Jackson looks like he's 20.
Yeah, they like CGI'd him younger. Young Phil Coulson's going to be in it.
Right.
It looks good enough. It looks like it'll be a fun 90s period piece. They'll do some cool things. It's got the scroll in it. It's like cool. It hits all the beats.
Shout out Cole Finn.
Is Cole doing something? Oh, yeah, Cole's working on that one. That's right. Yeah. So you'll find his names in the credits.
Underneath special effects technicians.
And that'll be good. So
they'll probably write his name wrong.
Like his name was wrong in the Infinity War.
He was Cole. He was Cole Bradley.
Yeah, not his actual name, but that's kind of funny. So here's the thing about the Dark Phoenix trailer.
Okay.
I just don't care. This X-Men series, and this will probably be the last one because X-Men will probably end up going over to Disney after this movie.
Right.
I could care less. Like, I watched this trailer and I got nothing. I just felt nothing.
Nothing at all.
Like, I wasn't like, oh, this looks stupid, but I didn't think it looked good. I was just like, I am so done with this iteration of X-Men. The Apocalypse movie was just horrendous. It felt like a mismatched, just completely screwed up movie that could have been something. And this movie feels the same way. I'm like, look, we've seen Dark Phoenix in Last Stand. It didn't work. Like, it hasn't worked outside of the comics yet. And I just am not invested in any of these characters anymore. Like the young group, like the young Cyclops and the young Storm and the young Jean Grey. I'm like, I could literally care less about these characters right now. Like, I don't even care Jennifer Lawrence is in it. I don't even care James McAvoy's in it. I'm like so over this story arc. I just want it to be done. So I don't know.
That's funny. It's so interesting because I feel like you are of the mindset that you, like you were just saying, it hasn't worked, the Dark Phoenix thing. But I'm like, you're also one of those people who like doesn't like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans or anything
like that.
Not that
I don't like it.
Yes, because you don't take it as what it was at the time. You want it to be what Marvel is now. But that wasn't the purpose that it served. I think that the original X-Men, when they do the whole story arc of Dark Phoenix, is awesome. Like
those three movies I'm not complaining about. Those three movies
you said outside
totally
the comic books it didn't work.
I'm just saying Dark Phoenix didn't work in that capacity. It felt not like the comic books. It felt rushed. It felt weird. It didn't.
But it was the first time it was ever being done, and that's the thing. Even when people were like, "Oh, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man sucks," I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Well,
like
Spider-Man 3.
It was a different. It was a different era. It was the first time. It wasn't like hokey costumes of like, you know what I mean? Like it was something they were really, creating something for what we have now wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But you know what's funny about
it
that?
Drives me crazy when people rip on it.
Man, she's an X-Men apologist.
No, I'm just saying.
You know what's funny is we at the beginning of the 2000s when X-Men started the Bryan Singer X-Men stuff, they put him in like those sleek black leather outfits to get away from like the hokey comic book thing, and it was cool. But now we're at a point where the black sleek leather outfits are the hokey one, and the colorful ones are like the ones people are back. I'm like, that's so funny how we shifted to like people would rather see the underpants on the outside of the Superman suit than like this sleek black sexy thing, you know? Like that's kind of funny, but I'll give you that.
I will say as an outsider, this is the only realm of superhero movies that I've never paid attention to.
Is X-Men?
Really?
It's the X-Men movies.
Have you seen them or you haven't seen them?
I remember seeing like the first X-Men that came out.
Okay.
Like, and I was like, cool. Like I liked the cartoon when I was little.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Whatever. I was like, oh man, Cyclops is like me. He wears glasses. Like that was the
Yeah.
reason I liked him.
Yeah.
It's true.
And then so Jess loves superhero stuff, right? Like it's her thing. She's like so knowledgeable and is like really great at it. I actually didn't catch up or finish watching any of the Marvel Universe stuff until she and I started dating. Like I was so behind, and she was like, "You got to check this out." I was like, "Okay," and like that's where I'm at. Superhero movies weren't a huge thing for me. It was all like sci-fi and like weird art films and those kinds of things. And so to just to hear your guys' exchange just now, like when you were like, "I don't like it," and you were like, "Yeah, but like." Stop complaining.
Yeah. Well, I was like, you need to look at like where we came
from the
from
perspective.
kind of thing.
And I was just like, I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? Literally the only litmus test I have of this is like, yeah, I thought Dr. Octopus was cool.
Yeah.
And like that soundtrack of Spider-Man 2 was great.
Oh yeah, they had the Ataris on it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And then I was like, yeah, Spider-Man 3 sucked. I'll say that. That was a bad movie, which is fine.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have a bad movie in the trilogy.
To be in that movie.
No, he wasn't.
The production company was it still Sony at the time?
Yeah,
Sony was still doing it then. You know, they're still doing it now, but they were like, no. Like they were going to introduce a symbiote, but then have it go away after he broke out of it. But they're like, no, you need to introduce Venom. So then they had to throw in Topher Grace as Eddie Brock and throw in a third.
See, I still don't think that movie's horrible.
Which is fine. And here's the thing: is like we're looking at films now like Infinity War that literally have like 8 baddies and like 50 good guys.
Yeah.
And they're making it work. It's fine. It doesn't feel overstuffed. It was just back then, it was like we weren't used to that inundation yet, and people weren't as familiar. So Sandman, even Venom, I feel like wasn't a household name at that time. I feel like now it is because it's become cool to be in the comic books. And
I disagree. I think people knew Venom.
Maybe Venom, but definitely not Sandman.
No,
and I think people were confused
Rhino,
about getting
knows
into the
that.
Amazing Spider-Man stuff. No one knew who half of the Sinister Six were. Before that, like no one knew who Rhino was, no one knew who Vulture was. People knew Doc Ock because of what's going on. But who else was in the Sinister Six? It was the Lizard, right?
Yeah.
And they only introduced that in that movie with Andrew Garfield. So, and I can't forget Craven wasn't in it, was he? Was Craven in it?
I literally only know those 3.
Yeah,
maybe
Or those
Craven
4
was in
that you
it, and
just
then
said.
there was like one other person. I'm
Rhino,
drawing
the
a blank of
Vulture,
who was
the
in
Lizard,
Sinister Six,
and
but maybe Shocker
Dr.
or someone
Octopus.
was in it. I don't remember.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, it's like at that time, I feel like they should have just stuck with because Green Goblin's fine. Like you had that story arc set up. You had Norman Osborn in the first one. You had the arc with Harry running through. Cool. Then throw in Sandman. Sure, that's fine. Like you want some type of gangster level type of villain. Yeah. But then you just throw in Venom out of nowhere, and it's like, no, this should be one. It's like if you watch The Dark Knight and the Joker wasn't the only bad guy in the movie, and some random dude just showed up at the end, like some random villain just showed up at the end. You know, that's what it felt like. Like you watching Dark Knight, and Scarecrow was the villain throughout the whole thing, and then the Joker showed up for the last 20 minutes. That's what it felt like. Venom is the end-all, be-all villain to Spider-Man. That's what everyone knows. And then they want to see Carnage after that. Like, you know, and to just throw him in as an afterthought, I think it rubbed the comic book fans the wrong way, so they didn't like it. And then I think that the general audience just wasn't aware of the significance. They were like, oh, that's what everyone's talking about? Yeah, whatever. You know, so they weren't digging it.
And for me, it was the weaker of the three.
Yeah.
And that's just from just a film perspective. And, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
X-Men, dude.
Yeah.
I think X-Men,
Yeah, we went way off into a Spider-Man tangent.
yeah, so
on
which
this
is fine with me
X-Men
because I
thing.
know way more about Spider-Man than I
Yeah.
do know about the X-Men. But
It's not our fault. You brought it up and you weren't even stoked on it.
No,
so
that's true.
You're
You
kind
were-
of breaking
I was
your
saying
own
I'm stoked on
podcast.
Captain Marvel. I was saying Dark
Yeah.
Phoenix came out recently, and I'm just like feel nothing about that.
I'll probably watch Dark Phoenix with Jess, though.
Oh, I'll probably see it. I don't know if I'll go in the theaters to see it, but I'll definitely see it because I mean it's probably gonna be the last one under the Warner Brothers.
I'm going because I genuinely have nothing. I had no preconceived notion. I don't even... Like, Jess was like, oh, Dark Phoenix. And I was like, yo, is that a Jean Grey thing? And she was just like, what, have you not seen him? And I was like, what? Like, that was what happened.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it could be great for all I know. I don't know. And everyone has difference of opinions. Like Madison, you don't like Days of Future Past that much. I think that's one of the best X-Men films made. I love Days of Future Past. So it's different. It's different for different people. You know, maybe it'll be a great film. It's kind of like this Venom film coming out. It's like I don't have much faith in it right now, but who knows? Maybe it'll be like the Meg, where like everyone started freaking out about it and like you gotta go see the Meg.
I
you
read
know?
a review
I
that
think
said, about Venom that said, don't waste your time.
I just always want to root for the underdog. Like, I don't want anybody to be like...
They should make an underdog movie. Reboot.
Yeah.
Reboot.
A reboot?
Then Madison will have to like that movie
Yes,
because she's
I'll
voting
be
for the
forced.
underdog.
I'm going to see the Venom movie 100%. It's Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
And most of it was shot outside of my dorm in San Francisco.
Oh, there
That's
you
true.
go.
It's all set in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah, where I went to grad school, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, that would be cool. I feel like I was gonna bring up one other thing, but I don't remember now. So yeah, that's stuff I'm stoked on. How about you, Madison? What are you stoked on?
I'm super stoked for the new Shane Dawson series,
Mm-hmm.
which for some reason his name just sounded wrong to me just then, but it is Shane Dawson.
Yeah, it's Shane.
Yeah, because I
I
said
don't know why
Scott
his last
Dawson.
name. Yeah, maybe
And
I
that's
was like,
Scott Dawson's a
what?
wrestler, and Shane Dawson
yeah,
is
he's
a
doing
videographer.
his new documentary series on Jake Paul, which, like I said, I was like, I didn't even know who Jake Paul was, so I was kind of like, am I gonna watch this series? But then as soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, holy heck, I have to watch this.
I think Shane Dawson just has your number because anything he does, you're like, this is amazing.
But that's not necessarily true because he's been a YouTuber since the very, very beginning, and I never watched any of his stuff, even though he collabed with YouTubers I watched. It wasn't until
But he's
he
got you
did
now to the point
the
where you'll watch
documentary.
something that you know nothing about. Like he did something on TanaCon, and you had no clue what TanaCon was.
No, I did know.
Oh,
what
you
it
did?
was.
Oh, I thought you
didn't watch her, but I knew what
I thought you
TanaCon
didn't know
was.
anything, and you were just like, I like this guy, so I'm gonna check it out.
The way he does things is just like he seems so much like such a genuine person, which I mean, I know a lot of YouTubers, that's the like what they try and convey, but he really does seem like that. But it was interesting that when he was talking about it, like he was saying, like, you know, kind of people like me were like, oh my gosh, he's doing all these documentaries and they're so good. And he put out a tweet that was like, hey, what would you guys think if I did something with Jake Paul? And people were like, we would unsubscribe, we would hate you, don't do it. And he was kind of like, well, this is
Now I got
what
it.
I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't want to like offend anybody, but I'm very interested in like kind of peeling back everything and seeing, is he really this horrible person who you should hate, or is this like a persona? Like there were just so many questions. So I've only seen the first 2 parts. I haven't checked today if there's another part out or anything, but I am like super, super excited. They're just so entertaining to watch. And I think this one's actually an 8-part series. Woo. So yeah, that's a lot of episodes. But I'm just so excited for whether he only puts out one more this week or all 6 of the other ones.
Does he
I
not
will
have a
be
set
watching.
schedule usually? It just comes out when it comes out?
See, I don't watch him regularly, so I don't know
Okay.
what his schedule's like. Only thing I know is he doesn't upload on weekends, I heard, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, gotta take some time
We
off.
got to phone a friend. We got to call girlfriend Jess. She'll
Yes.
know.
Yeah, she'll know all
She's
that.
been a
Because
Shane fan since the beginning. so-
Literally, like, I think when the second part came out, when I got the notification when I was on my lunch, it had only been up for 2 hours, and it already had like 1.5 million views.
Oh yeah, it's like.
And
our
then by the
videos.
time it's done, like literally by the time the whole Jeffree Star thing was done, it was like 13 million, 15 million. Like this
That's
guy knows
crazy.
how to get people to
That's
care.
crazy.
Jess had told me something that was like some controversy about Shane's videos on the trending page on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, where that came out, and at the time, Will Smith was jumping out of a like helicopter or something, or bungee jumping out of a helicopter over the Grand Canyon for his 50th birthday.
Okay.
And at the time that both of that was happening, like Shane released his, and like he's had issues before where he's not on the trending page.
Sure.
And that happened, and Will Smith had like X amount of views, but Shane had like at that point in time like 5.2 million already.
Sure.
And wasn't on the trending thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
And
Well, they always say there's like politics behind
or they say
it.
it's like that's all like with the YouTubers, like, oh, it's like politics, like it's this whole thing, but YouTube says like, oh no, it's just the algorithm. But it's like,
Right.
how can an algorithm not be like, look at how many hits this is getting compared to
Yeah.
this needs to be shown.
Like it seems pretty simple.
But they were saying, I mean, like Shane has been doing this for so long, and just now he's getting people to actually sponsor his videos.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just showing you again. I mean, for a long time, like it was like the girl I watch all the time, Trisha Paytas.
I don't know that one.
She's the one that's like the blonde, like Barbie girl, and like she used to do like the dogs don't have brains and like all the spam stuff.
Oh, she was the
Oh,
one who
that
played the
weird
character.
But
lady.
now
She played that
she doesn't do
character.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
But like she was always somebody that like you would watch, but you wouldn't subscribe to because you didn't want
Yeah.
to be one of those people. But then now she's like this millionaire who does all this stuff. And I'm like, I feel like people like her or Shane who were kind of interesting and different compared to somebody who was just like a beauty guru, like who
Right.
just did makeup. Like they were unique, interesting, weird, maybe even polarizing personalities
Mhm.
that brands didn't want to necessarily commit to.
Well, because it wasn't a
But
safe bet. Yeah.
now that's what people want to see.
Yeah.
They're very, interested in. I mean, that's just my humble opinion, but
Oh, you're humble.
my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. You've been liking all this Shane Dawson
Oh,
stuff recently.
so
People
good.
have been saying good things. I think
Yeah.
it's good to check
Now
out.
you guys just gotta watch it next.
Yeah. How about you, Cam? What are you stoked on?
I'm not stoked about anything in pop culture coming out. I mean, I am a little bit about Venom coming out on
Yeah.
October 5th, just because he was like my favorite anti-hero / villain / whatever when I was a kid. I remember playing the like Spider-Man game with my best friend Michael Davis up in like his loft in his attic when we were kids on his Sega Genesis, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
always Venom.
That sounds like the best 90s story
right.
ever. Like,
How about that? Oh
the
yeah, and
best
we-
time in the 90s.
Oh yeah, and we were drinking like
Surge.
no, we were too little.
Okay.
Our moms didn't let us drink it then.
So water.
But we would
Just kidding.
no, we had like do you remember like those like Squeeze-Its? Like, that were, like,
Yes, the mean greens
Yeah,
and
so we had
the
that.
mad
We-
orange and all
we would
that.
drink Squeeze-Its, and then it was when KFC delivered.
They
And so
delivered?
They did. And
Oh,
so
man.
we would get like popcorn chicken.
Popcorn chicken was my favorite thing. I'm so
Exactly.
bummed they don't have that
So-
anymore.
We would get popcorn chicken and like mashed potatoes and gravy and like Squeeze-Its, and we would go up to his attic and play.
And in the 90s, that was considered a healthy meal.
Oh, heaven, dude. But, like, it was like the coolest. Like if I told my mom I ate popcorn chicken and mashed potatoes, they're like, good, you're going to grow up and be strong.
Yeah,
Like, it makes
exactly.
no
At
sense,
least
right?
you weren't eating fruit by the
90s
foot.
nutrition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
And so we did that. We played that game, and like so I've always loved Venom. So of course I'm gonna watch that. We already like chatted about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the film is shot. Like my friends were sending me. They're like, this is right outside your dorm window. Is where they're shooting this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they were shooting it a year after I graduated. And so I was like, oh, bummer. That would have been cool to see because, you know, I'm
Yeah.
a filmmaking student. Would have been cool if it was outside there. Whatever. Could have seen Tom Hardy. Rad. Probably hanging out next to the crackhead. Shout out Walter. There's no way he listens to this. Walter was the crackhead I brought breakfast to every morning.
Oh, that's so...
Um,
if he is listening to this, that's amazing.
Yeah, shout out Walter.
Yeah,
Was he actually
right.
a crackhead?
Yeah, he would do crack, and I would sit next to him while he smoked crack, and he would like draw little runes on his cardboard altar. And
Was
like,
your
pray.
dorm in the Tenderloin?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that
How
makes
did
way
you?
more sense.
How did you start talking to Walter?
Walter would hang out next to our stoop, and so like I'd wait for like a lift or like I'd go outside because I was smoking cigarettes at the time. So I'd like go out and like smoke a cigarette, and like Walter would be there, and I'd be like, "What's up, man?" Like, and I'd just talk to him, or he'd like call me over, and I wasn't scared of him because I'm like 6'2" and 200 pounds, like, and I'm
fair enough,
right? I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna get assaulted, and like I'm right next to my house, like whatever. And so I'd smoke cigarettes and like talk to Walter. Walter, but you got an extra cigarette? Like, yeah, and I talked to him about his life, and like he wasn't like he like down on his luck, all the stuff, got into crack, like whatever, and I would bring him breakfast every morning, and I gave him an old pair of my shoes, and like hung out with Walter. He'd disappear for a while at a time, like in jail, come back out, hang out by the stoop. He was a really good guy. I feel really bad about it, but so shout out Walter. And like the cameras were set up, and the photos I got were like right where like Walter used to sit, and so I was like, weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
And like I could look out my window and be like, "What up, Walter?" And he'd be like, "Hey man, like, what are you doing? You want to come outside?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay." And like I'd like smoke a cigarette and like hang out with Walter. Like he was like in his 50s, like I mean, it's weird to be like, "Oh yeah, I hung out with a guy that smoked crack," right? Like,
yeah,
he'd like put a crack rock in his pipe and like smoke it, and like he would like pray over these like weird runes he drew with a Sharpie on a piece of cardboard, and then like sit there, and then like he'd smoke his crack, and then he sang me a song called "Hippie on Mars" once that he wrote, and
what was it about?
It was about
hippie on Mars.
This is how the song went: "Hippie on Mars, hippie on Mars." He did that for like 14 minutes. And I just
it's a very profound statement.
Sounds like a Christian song. And they just say the same
they
things
just say
over
the same
and over
line
again.
for like 8 times.
Yeah, I was like, here you go, Walter. Here's your like bowl of Cheerios. Like I had like paper bowls and stuff, and like I'd bring a bowl of Cheerios or I'd bring a protein bar or whatever. And,
that is so funny.
Yeah, I just hung out with Walter before I go to school.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but
I lived you meet in life, man.
Yeah, but I lived in Tenderloin. Like I lived in like the roughest area in San Francisco.
That's
like,
so weird that those are like official dorms for the school.
So they're off campus. And it was the cheapest big building that we could rent.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and it was a shithole.
Yeah. Well, I feel like most stuff in the Tenderloin is like that.
Right.
But that's
I don't
also.
think I've ever actually been to the Tenderloin.
Yeah, I think it's where Paige lives, or she used to.
She doesn't live on there anymore.
Not anymore. She did at some point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty bad. I'm pretty sure me and Joe walked through there when we were up in San Francisco one time, and it was like, let's get out of here as quick as we can.
Yeah, it's sketchy. But more than anything, it's just like a lot of people that are addicts and a lot of homelessness. And like, they're all really cool people for the most part, and they're really only violent when they don't have their fix. And by really violent, I mean like they get aggressive. And like it'd be different if I was like a girl walking by myself.
Sure.
Where there's like a whole societal layer of like fear to that kind of experience. Or if I was like, I don't know, like a less tall, big man.
So
like,
me.
Even still, I think you'd be fine, right? Like if you keep your head down, you just mind your own business.
Yeah.
Like no
Don't
one
start
messes with you.
anything.
Don't start anything.
Right. Like, but I did see like I saw like heroin needles in arms. I saw blood. I saw gunshot, like
Yikes.
gun violence, all that stuff. Saw it all the time.
That's crazy. I feel like that's San Francisco though. There's
Also,
pockets all over.
That's crazy. That's somebody's life. Like
Oh,
I think
yeah.
about that all the time. Like even when you pass somebody who looks completely quote unquote normal, like you don't know what they're going through, as like stupid and cliche as that sounds.
No, but it's
like
real.
to see that, or Walter get to talk to like what happened and how did you get
Yeah.
here, and you know what I mean. Like I always think people always say like, you know, like nobody gets married thinking I can't wait to get divorced, or nobody grows up thinking I can't wait to be a drug addict. Like that's generally not the thought, but then that happens.
Yeah, it's just curious to me like how you can get so down on your luck that you get to that point. Like what certain events had to transpire in a very specific order to get you to this point. Because at any time, butterfly effect, one tiny thing could have shifted and you could have went to a completely different path where you weren't crack Walter on the side of the house in San Francisco.
Like
you know,
talking
like
to college students who like had no money but were like, yo, I feel bad for you because like
Yeah.
I'm privileged in this situation, and like I get to eat because I have a box of cereal, and like cereal was my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Walter didn't get a breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to give you at least one of these meals because I can.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
totally. And that's like, it's just so weird to think about that. Like we're so consumed with like who we are and the people around us.
Yeah.
And there's like so many millions of other people out there that you don't think like, oh man, like.
Well, I mean, on a different, but kind of the same level. That's what it was like going to Texas. Like you and I grew up in Santa Clarita. I've never gone anywhere else, like lived wise. Like we never went to college or like, I mean, we went to college. We didn't
Never
like,
moved away for
move away
college.
from
Yeah.
college. But seeing something like, oh my gosh, there's so many other people who have a life.
There's
that
literally
do all this
there's
other
literally
stuff.
163,000 people in this town that have no idea who we are, that we've never run into at any point ever because we've never been here. You know, so like it is kind of weird to think about that, where you're like, oh yeah, you see certain people here, like we see like we've lived here so long that there's like homeless people that walk around the street that like we know it, like we recognize and know who they are. We're like, it's the dude who runs, it's the dude who like looks like this, it's the dude who does the recycling,
it's the king of them all.
Yeah, dude, we saw him today.
Okay, so he's the best. Like, okay, that's a thing for only people in this area that would know who the king of them all is.
No, like Madison like
know.
was like, don't look right now, but like he's
the king
here.
of them all.
We were eating at Sharky's today, and I look over, I'm like, oh my god, that's him.
I'd never actually seen him up close.
Oh yeah.
Did you notice his gigantic package?
No.
Look at it next time.
Oh my gosh. No, I didn't even like. He was like all the way over there.
It makes no sense. It's like
Really?
that weird looking dude with like the way he looks and everything. His junk is like the size of like an armadillo.
Oh gosh.
That's
Although I
weird.
learned the other day people wear cock rings all the time.
Yeah.
I was watching like a sex ed YouTube channel and they were like, oh yeah, there's like different kinds of cock rings and some people just wear it all the time. So I mean, maybe he
I
just
feel like
got
that
a
would
really
be very
weird one.
uncomfortable.
I wouldn't be into that.
I would be very self-conscious about
neither.
that. Yeah, Madison never wears hers. I gave it to her for our second anniversary. She just never wears it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so weird to think that like there's so many people in the world that like it's weird to think too there's so many people in the world you're never going to cross paths with ever.
Yeah, that's
like
interesting too.
there's someone in like India right now where there's no way that we're ever going to even
India, like Nevada.
Yeah, like there's yeah, I mean I'm
Santa
just giving
Clarita.
Yeah.
Seriously though, yeah. Like how many people in our own town that I've lived in for 29 years.
I was literally telling Jordan, I remember when he was like, oh yeah, like Nate's replacement Cam is going to be at trivia tonight. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, bye. And now like a few months later, you're like a good friend. We're sitting on the couch.
Like, in your house.
Isn't that so weird?
It's
but that's
bizarre.
somebody
you
who
never
was
know.
not even near our radar.
Yeah.
Right.
You never know. Like before that, I think the only time that I had seen you was when you made some Brock Lesnar joke at trivia when Ryan was there. And then I was like, that was it.
Yeah.
And that's what he said to me. He's like, hey, remember that guy who made that Brock Lesnar joke? Yeah, he's the one who's taking over for Nate. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool.
Well, how does that make you feel, Cam?
That makes me feel good.
Yeah, right? Good,
Yeah.
good.
The other thing I'm stoked on, to rein this back in and not talk about like the sad human
We're getting
condition
really
of,
I was
like
just
loss
gonna
this
of
is
say-
going really long. We're getting very philosophical.
It's
on
kind of
this.
awesome though.
Yeah.
This is what happens when we're like tired and I've had 4 drinks.
Yeah.
You guys are seeing real Cam.
Will the real Cam please stand it?
Yeah. The other thing I'm stoked on, which is like just a personal life thing.
Yeah.
My homebrew will be ready to taste when this podcast comes out.
Same day.
Nice.
That's right.
Same day.
That's going to be crazy.
And I'm excited. So I made an Irish red that I added almond butter and Washington cherries to.
Yes, that's going to be so
Washington
delicious.
cherries.
It's going to be so unique and so delicious.
It's gonna be so weird and good.
Yeah.
Like I have high hopes for it, and like it's like all capped. I put them in like the little like kind of stumpy like amber red stripe.
Oh yeah,
bottles
those are cool.
with like a red cap. And
Yeah.
I came up with a name for my beer.
You going to
which is-
reveal that here?
I'm gonna reveal it now.
Nice.
Because when people listen to this, I will be having my
That's
first
true.
one. Its name is I got those like "Hello, my name is" labels. And I put one on the bottle and it says, "Hello, my name is Cletus."
All right.
And it says almond butter red. It's just what it says underneath.
Cool.
But Cletus is a character I came up with in San Francisco that I played that is the antithesis of me.
Okay.
So I am the bleeding heart liberal artist, right? And so Cletus is from Arkansas, and he's also educated. He's well educated. However, he believes in everything that I don't. So I will become Cletus for the rest of the podcast, just in honor of that. Does that sound good? I haven't been Cletus since Donald Trump got elected because it wasn't as funny to me.
Oh,
Okay.
it's a little too real.
But it's gonna be funny now. Cletus is here. How's it going, everyone? Cletus is back.
Great.
All right, Cam's back. This is the worst. I don't know what Cletus says. Like, I turn my brain off, and he like just turns into like he's the opposite of me.
There you go.
But I perfected him the first time. I was Cletus. This is like a little anecdote for the story. First time I was Cletus, we were inside like a CVS in San Francisco that had frozen yogurt, and I walk up, and this is the first time I did it. I was just like bored. I was losing my mind because I was like working on my thesis.
Oh yeah.
Stuff, and I walk up and I just go. I was like, "You guys have ice cream here?" And she was like, "It's frozen yogurt," and I was like that queer ass hippie shit. You freeze it. And she was like, "What?" Like, you know,
Oh
like
yeah,
this
Takes
poor
by surprise.
lady at San Francisco.
It's like literally you were playing your own game of Impractical Jokers with yourself.
Right. But I was just losing my mind, right?
Yeah.
And I walk up, I was like, so you're telling me that I can walk over here, pull any down any single one of these robot wieners, and ice cream's gonna come out? And she was like, frozen yogurt will come out. And I was like, no, I only want ice cream. She's like, it's ice cream. She was like so
she
fed
was
up.
so over it. She's like, I'm a 16-year-old. I could care less
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, and I was like, all right. I was like, but, and I took a bite, and I was like, hot damn, this tastes like the same frozen cow titty juice Mama used to make. And she looked at me. She was just like, who the fuck is this?
Get out of my froyo store.
And so my friends Grayson and AJ were like staring at me, and they were just like, what was that? And I was like, I don't know, but his name's Cletus. And then it just like,
there you go.
Turned, and Cletus became a person. So Cletus is now, I'm deciding that every single beer that I homebrew is going to be a character that I have either written in a story, played in a movie, or a character I've created.
Okay, so I can't wait for Cam eats a sandwich and the Federal Sandwich Commission. So that'll be
That
a
one's
good one.
censored, so it's just going to be a big black bar.
Yeah,
over it.
exactly. Federal
But you'll know
Sandwich
what it
Commission
means.
does not want you on the air.
No, the Federal Sandwich Commission is...
All right, guys.
Yeah,
I think we're getting we're losing viewers because they're like, I tuned in to listen to pop culture stuff, and now it's getting all philosophical. I'm getting weird characters, or maybe we're gonna get way more viewers this week because we're doing something weird.
Hey, Mike, Cletus is here. Cletus has a big old lip of chewing right now, and he's got to take it out before he goes to bed because he doesn't want his teeth to get off, so his woman doesn't think
Or
his mouth
swallow
stinks.
it.
Oh, I ain't swallowing nothing.
All right. On that note, we're gonna say goodbye here, and then we'll let Bailey say goodbye again.
She's too itchy.
Bye, Bailey. All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.